after the bizarre world arrives. The man fought his way to the top of the new player list among millions of people. But he, who had attracted the attention of millions, declined an invitation from a top guild. Instead, he chose a garbage guild full of amateurs. The guild full of amateurs is located in a remote corner of the world map. It is also the poorest, coldest, and most dangerous place. Evan Zhao just arrived here, and saw a sexy beauty standing at the door. "Is this the territory of Slackers Guild?" Evan Zhao curiously asked. The woman took off her sunglasses after hearing that. "What? Don't we look like slackers?" "I haven't told you yet. My name is Rachel Liu. I am an auditor for Guild. You can call me Sister Liu," Rachel Liu said as she turned and walked towards the building. "I'll take you to meet some of the other misfits from the Guild." After hearing that, Evan Zhao responded with a sound and followed behind. When Rachel Liu pushed open the creaky old door, all eyes in the hall turned towards them. Many people had strange smiles on their faces. Rachel Liu paused, then began to introduce them. "The man with black framed glasses is our guild leader, Uncle Chain. You can call him Uncle Chain. The cold beauty is Jasmine Ming, our vice president. Try not to chat with her. She won't pay attention to you. And that darn fraudulent Taoist is Hawk Jiang, who loves deceit and scams the most. Be very careful not to be deceived by him." Upon hearing this, Hawk Jiang immediately started to explain with black lines all over his head, saying, "Rachel Liu, I am well-versed in astronomy and geography, never overcharging for fortune-telling and divination. How did I become a fraudulent Taoist?" he said, as he squeezed next to Evan Zhao. "Come, I have arranged a room for you. We usually stay on the top floor of the 7th floor. New player lives on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors. Your room number is 404. I applied for it specifically for you. It's very lucky." Evan Zhao quickly nodded in thanks after hearing this. Hawk Jiang chuckled and said, "No worries. Once you're here, we're all family. Being able to stand out among millions as a new player, we have high hopes for you." Rachel Liu, seeing this, shook her head, suggesting not to take advantage of him. I took him to the dorm. Then she took the initiative to walk up the stairs. Soon we arrived at the door of room 404. "After you are bound to the room, this room will be your safe room. Except for your orders, no one else can enter." Rachel Liu finished speaking and asked Evan Zhao to stand at the door. At this time, a blue light shot out from the peephole. Ding! Soul information collected successfully. Then the door opened slowly. The scene inside was also fully visible. Very clean and tidy, with a separate bathroom. Hot water is available 24 hours a day. But for food and water, you need to go to the abandoned train station 2 kilometers away to scavenge for supplies. Rachel Liu's eyes lit up at the mention of this. "You need at least level 3 to enter there. Your level is not enough. Sister Liu can provide some for you." Evan Zhao nodded quickly and thanked Sister Liu. "You're welcome." Rachel Liu waved her hand and turned to leave. "Come to the living room tomorrow night. I just entered the new player group with you." Briefly described the gameplay process of the Inferno. Oh, she suddenly remembered something. She then added, "Place is outside the apartment. Do not explore for now. It's not safe." With that, she twisted her waist and walked out. Meanwhile, in the Alliance's guild, Tao Yang remained silent for a long time after receiving Evan Zhao's information. Then he arranged for a woman to call Human Demon Ball. Upon hearing this, the woman seemed hesitant. Vice President Ball is in the last dungeon. He killed all the other players. Now the killing point is too high. He will be locked in the killing field and can come out after 3 days. Tao Yang glanced at the calendar beside him. "I still have time. I can wait a little longer." The man was forcibly pulled into a strange world. And he excellently completed the quest, ranking first on the new player leaderboard among tens of millions of people. But to everyone's surprise, he chose a guild full of noobs. He rested for a night after arriving at the guild. The next day, All newly joined new players were summoned to the hall. Evan Zhao also came here in a nightgown. After scanning the room, Uncle Chain began to introduce himself. Now that everyone is here, let me say a few words. I am the president of the Slackers Guild. You can call me Uncle Chain. The world we are currently in is a world of chaotic laws, known as the disorderly realm. It's very dangerous here. Only our guild building is absolutely safe. So, don't wander around if there's nothing to do. As a player of the Inferno game, there are 2 quests that need to be completed. One is the dungeon quest, and the other is the larger world quest. The dungeon quest must be completed once every month, and can be done a maximum of 2 times. And it's worth mentioning that you are likely to be matched with other players in the same dungeon. PvP is common in such situations. So don't trust anyone easily. Additionally, once you enter the dungeon, Eternal Night Camp will have a live stream room for you. Try to perform excellently as much as possible. Attract more viewers to become your fans. At the end of the live stream, popularity and gifts will be converted into extra points for you. Although not a lot, they can help attract the attention of some big guilds. It will also make it easier to switch jobs in the future. Everyone was a bit puzzled when they heard this. How could it make it easier to switch jobs? They all said it seems like he doesn't care at all whether the new players in the guild stay or leave. Uncle Chain paused for a moment and continued. As for world quests, it's even simpler. Your system will display them. If you're interested, just follow along. If you're not interested or afraid, then don't do them. The guild doesn't force anyone. Do you have any more questions now? As soon as the words fell, many new players eagerly raised their hands, wanting to ask questions. Uncle Chain was somewhat speechless at the scene. He adjusted his glasses and stood up directly, leaving the place. Since everyone is fine, let's adjourn the meeting. The few people still with their hands up suddenly looked bewildered on the spot. Oh my gosh, is this guild leader so irresponsible? I feel like I've been taken advantage of. Don't blame others if you choose to join a Slack guild yourself. Oh! I fucking applied for this guild after checking the list. Evan Zhao sat alone on the sofa, lost in thought. Actually, everything about the game can be found in the system. Whether they explain it or not doesn't make much of a difference. What left him speechless was that the players in this guild were too casual. They didn't even bother to act. They've never even attempted the world quests. This guild has been established for 2 years, and is still stuck on the tutorial quest. But this actually works fine. They can experience the storyline progression from the beginning on their own. Read carefully. What exactly happened in Suspended Valley Town back then? Then Evan Zhao opened the world quest. The first thing that caught his eye was the tutorial quest objective to collect food and water at the train station. Recommended level 1 to 3. Quest reward 2 skill points. Brief introduction. You suddenly wake up, finding yourself in the terrifying Eternal Night Lands, and your goal is to escape from this place. But before that, you need to figure out how to survive. Attached is a map. Evan Zhao glanced at the map and found that the apartment was only 2 kilometers away from the abandoned train station. Although the distance is not long, 80% of the station is in shadow. This indicates that these areas are not related to the quest, and the potential dangers that may arise could exceed level 1 to 3. Then I can't go on an adventure now. Anyway, there's plenty of food in the guild's warehouse. 7B can't finish it for now. The most important thing now is to quickly improve my level and points, then go to the mall to exchange for the necessary items. With that in mind, he clicked on the dungeon match on the system panel. Ding. You have successfully matched. Dungeon. Cursed School of Horror. Player Evan Zhao participates. The main quest is to survive for 7 days in Stonehill High School. Main quest reward 75 XP. Subquest reward Sacrificial Doll. Difficulty The Inferno. You have successfully enrolled in the top-notch school Stonehill High School. However, after living in the school for a while, you suddenly realize that something is not quite right with this school. Then, a white light flashes. In a classroom at Stonehill High School, a girl slowly opened her eyes. After entering this dungeon, the popularity in the live stream quickly reached over 1,000 viewers. So beautiful. A beautiful woman's popularity is always high. Although she has only gone through the dungeon 4 times, I have witnessed her growth. In the future, she will be my goddess. At first, she was just a spoiled rich girl, but now she knows how to use her intellect. After Linnea Yang opened the system interface, her face turned instantly pale. Why am I so unlucky in Inferno difficulty? This is only the 4th time in the dungeon, and I encountered Inferno difficulty. The last dungeon was on normal difficulty, and almost tortured me to death. What should I do with this Inferno difficulty this time? The more she thinks about it, the more she gets a headache. Before, in the dungeon with a total of 25 HP, she died 3 times and lost 15 points. Now she only has 10 points left. If she dies again, she will only have 5 points left. The pressure will be too much for me the next time I enter the dungeon. After all, once a person's HP is reduced to 0 in the dungeon, people will die completely. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but start feeling scared. By the way, there are still teammates. She suddenly stood up and scanned the whole scene. Look at my teammates. Maybe one of them is more powerful. But she was extremely disappointed after a moment. Only saw in the crowd 3 people's heads displayed annotation. But these 3 are even lower level than hers. Linnea Yang weakly slumped back into the chair. Finished, these 3 are the newest of the newbies. There's simply no hope. Are we really going to fail today? Especially that Evan Zhao who keeps looking around. Forget it, we still have to rely on ourselves. Look at the time, it's now the lunch break. If everything goes smoothly, there are 10 minutes left until the first class in the afternoon. Take advantage of this time. I exchanged information with them. So Linnea Yang started to act. She called the 3 of them to the playground. As she had the highest rank, she naturally became the team leader. Listening to what we are facing now, unprecedented difficulties and dangers. In the next 7 days, we must work hard to unite and cooperate in order to have a chance to survive. Do you have any thoughts on this dungeon? Upon hearing this, Toby and Liam shook their heads helplessly. Just started the game, and have no information at all. What thoughts could we possibly have? We are completely clueless. After scanning the nearby classrooms, Evan Zhao noticed something unusual. The classrooms on the first floor were not fully occupied. Each classroom had around 46 seats, but the number of people inside did not exceed 23. A very interesting phenomenon. But what does it imply? For rookies are trapped in the ghost school and Inferno difficulty. They not only need to break the curse, but also get the sacrificial doll. They also have to do whatever it takes to survive here for 7 days. But this is obvious. It's not something that they, who are not newcomers, can handle. The highest-ranking Linnea Yang anxiously pulled 3 people to discuss countermeasures. Toby and Liam helplessly shrugged their shoulders. Linnea Yang then turned to the vigilant Evan Zhao and asked him if he had any opinions. The name Evan Zhao seems familiar. Toby couldn't help but murmur. Then he suddenly picked up his head, as if he had thought of something. Are you the one? Are you the one who achieved an S+ ranking in the Giant Elephant Hospital on Inferno difficulty, and made it to the top of the new player leaderboard? The other 2 were stunned on the spot upon hearing that. Topping the new player leaderboard. Awesome. He is a Thai who stands out among millions. Evan Zhao looked as 3 people stared at him with fiery eyes. Evan Zhao then asked them a question. Do you still remember where your seats are? Linnea Yang excitedly responded that she remembered. What's going on? The other party is her lifesaver. Evan Zhao did not respond. Instead, he turned his head and looked towards the empty classroom. It's time for class. Let's go back. If nothing unexpected happens, there should be quite a few deaths in our classroom today. Remember, you must sit in your own seat. Do not sit in the wrong one. Upon hearing this, the three of them were somewhat horrified for a moment. Linnea Yang noticed that Toby's complexion was very poor. She asked, "What is wrong?" Toby spoke intermittently. "I seem to have forgotten where my seat is." "Is this very important, Boss Zhao?" Evan Zhao turned to look at him after hearing that. "I'm not sure if there is danger in other positions, but our starting point is definitely safe in a short time. If you really can't remember, you can think back to the reference point you remember." At this point, a large number of viewers have flooded into the live stream room. He is truly the top player. And it's Evan Zhao from Dungeon Inferno difficulty. He's really unlucky. It's a pity that he left the new player recommended platform. Big Brother Evan Zhao's popularity has plummeted. Forget it. How many new players entering the game have this kind of popularity? 300 viewers are a lot, okay? This time, there's no system help to weaken the ghost's power. Hee. This time I want to see how he dies. The bell for class rang. Let's go back. After speaking, the few people immediately rushed back to the classroom. Stand up, following the order of a male student. Everyone stood up in unison, ready to welcome the arrival of the teacher. Evan Zhao glanced around at the people nearby. In an instant, his pupils reflected crimson data once again. To his surprise, the entire classroom was filled with ghosts, except for his teammates. Fortunately, the displayed entities are all neutral units. They won't randomly attack others. After a moment, the door was pushed open. A woman in professional attire walked in. "Today we will have a math exam." As her words fell, the ghosts around shuddered in fear. Ding, female teacher triggers neutral. Before triggering her hunting condition, the unit remains in a neutral state at all times. After triggering the hunting condition, the unit's power will skyrocket. She will recover after killing the target. Evan Zhao couldn't help but frown at this. Triggered by neutral. Is this trigger point related to the test paper in her hand? Or is it related to their seating arrangement? Or perhaps both are related. A man was forcibly dragged into the terrifying ghost school. Besides him and 3 teammates, the rest of the students are ghosts, and they must find a way to survive for 7 days here. With the terrifying entrance of the female teacher, the atmosphere instantly became extremely oppressive. Now the test papers are being distributed. As she finished speaking, her gaze coldly swept across the crowd. The exam lasts for 50 minutes. No walking around or making noise during the period. After she finished speaking this sentence, Evan Zhao clearly noticed that the chubby ghost in the front row was shaking incessantly. But what exactly was he afraid of? The female teacher then started to distribute the exam papers, starting from the first row to the last. Even if there were empty seats with no one, she would still place a paper on them. Evan Zhao glanced at a seat near to him. He found that there were no words on the test paper at all, while simple exam questions appeared on someone else's test paper. He looked at the questions above, and Evan Zhao couldn't help feeling a little headache. I totally don't understand. That's the only way to go. He then quickly wrote down his name and student ID. I'll leave the rest of the choices to fate. Exam discipline is lax, and many people are looking around furtively. There are even some who directly ask their neighbors for answers. What should I choose for the third question? Are your questions the same as mine? And the female teacher doesn't seem to care about these. She has been carefully checking the students in the classroom from the podium. Evan Zhao's brow furrowed when he saw the chaotic scene. The invigilating teacher didn't even bother to intervene. Are the trigger conditions and exam discipline irrelevant? But the student in front seems to be trembling even more. At this moment, Linnea Yang turned to look at him. When she learned that Evan Zhao is currently ranked first on the new player leaderboard, she pinned her hopes of survival on him. Because it's impossible to climb to the top among tens of millions based solely on luck. He must have extraordinary skills. Let's see what he is up to. Can't be true. He can't even solve such a simple question. Does he still need to rely on tossing an eraser to make decisions? Linnea Yang saw this and started to feel uneasy again. Suddenly, the voice of the female teacher came from the podium. Don't look around randomly. As the voice fell, a moment of bone-chilling coldness filled every corner. All the students dared not make any more movements. Evan Zhao also counted his fingers seriously and calculated the questions. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 6 is 24. Soon, he finished all the questions on the paper. At this moment, female teacher also began her exam invigilation patrol. A blood-stained axe was slowly drawn out. Her face also began to become hideously torn apart. Extremely terrifying. Haha, let me see which students will be punished. The man was forcibly dragged into the terrifying ghost school. Here, other than 3 companions, everyone else is a ghost. Even scarier is the female teacher in the classroom. She was invigilating with an axe smeared with crimson blood. Let me see which students will be punished. After female teacher spoke, she started patrolling with the axe in hand. She stopped in her tracks when passing by Toby. Toby was so scared that his hair stood on end, trembling all over and not daring to breathe. At this moment, his heart was pounding like a galloping herd of horses. The shadow of the axe happened to be cast on the exam paper. Toby rubbed the pen in his hand vigorously. His whole body was in a tense state. His heart was now in his throat. He didn't dare look back, let alone make a sound. Could it be that I'm sitting in the wrong place? No, it shouldn't be. Oh, I didn't remember the stationery on this table wrongly. I beg you not to kill me. He was devastated. He was terrified, as if his soul had left his body. Spiritual power was falling at a rate of 3 points per second. The crowd outside the live broadcast room all understood the situation. This kid is finished. If spirit points keep falling, he probably won't make it through the first day. Lene Yang is afraid. Spiritual power keeps dropping. Some admirers are starting to worry as well. On the other hand, Evan Zhao is completely different. He doesn't seem to be affected at all. Damn, is he a fiend? His spiritual power is as stable as an old dog at 101. I admire his mental toughness. However, I just looked at his test paper. He didn't get a single question right. Toby's spiritual power keeps dropping. It quickly fell below 50. He is now in a semi-comatose state. And at this moment, the female teacher suddenly left his side. Toby finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this, slumping onto the table. Female teacher then came up behind Evan Zhao. A strong sense of pressure followed. Evan Zhao seemed to sense intense hostility. He raised his head, showing a harmless smile, as he looked at female teacher. Special prompt: female teacher has triggered neutral stance. I have caused such chaos, yet she remains neutral. It seems she is disrupting exam discipline. Indeed, it's inappropriate to trigger her to kill. So even if she really wants to kill someone, as long as the trigger conditions are not met, she won't act. Evan Zhao suddenly realized a few things at this point. From a certain perspective, female teacher is the safest ghost in this classroom. But being safe now doesn't necessarily mean being safe in the future. Evan Zhao hesitated and reached for the scalpel in his pocket. He is currently not sure if he can kill this female ghost. What are you looking at me for? Hurry up and do your exam now. The female ghost is staring at Evan Zhao with an axe in her hand. Evan Zhao thought for a while, and decided to hold back for now. What are you looking at? Is there something on my face? The female teacher asked as she approached. Her terrifying mouth split all the way to her ears while speaking, with a tongue dripping with foul-smelling saliva, suddenly extending a long section. Evan Zhao couldn't help but furrow his brows at the sight. However, he quickly regained his usual demeanor. I just think you look pretty, teacher. Just now, I saw a female ghost that had fallen to its death, with its face all rotten. It left a great trauma on my young heart. Upon hearing the compliment about her appearance, the female teacher's looks quickly returned to their peak. And she revealed a surprised and shy expression. Is the teacher really good-looking? No. It's exam time now. Stop beating around the bush with me. Do the questions quickly." With that, she raised her pale and cold hand, pressed it on Evan Zhao's head. At this moment, the chubby ghost in the front seat was shaking like a sieve. He kept repeating, "Don't kill me!" He had been suppressing his fear from the beginning. This scene immediately caught the female teacher's attention. She instantly stretched her neck closer, her eyes narrowed coldly, staring at the other person. The man is trapped in the terrifying ghost school. Inside, apart from 3 companions, everyone else is a ghost. The scariest part is the female teacher invigilating the classroom. At the slightest provocation, she will raise the axe in her hand and start attacking people. When Evan Zhao was forced to solve problems by her, a chubby ghost ahead suddenly trembled with fear. The female teacher instantly stretched her neck and stared at him intently, while also raising the axe in her hand high up for the first time. The chubby ghost was instantly terrified, and its whole body bristled up. He immediately knelt down on the ground and begged for mercy with a thud. "Teacher, please give me another chance. I beg you." He hugged female teacher's leg, crying bitterly, I promise I won't make the same mistake again next time." Before he could finish his sentence, female teacher had already swung the axe down. With a splatter, the bright red blood sprayed everywhere. A round and rolling head. It fell right at Evan Zhao's feet. Evan Zhao was slightly stunned for a few seconds upon seeing this scene. Then he slowly extended his leg. With a bang, he kicked the head directly out. The next second, the head happened to roll onto Toby's desk. Under the 4 eyes meeting, Toby was instantly scared to the brink of a urinary leak. Still not recovered from the fear of the female teacher, he rolled his eyes and immediately foamed at the mouth, fainting on the table. The audience outside the live broadcast room laughed like crazy. Can a normal person do such a thing? Everyone, be it a ghost, is showing off. Fortunately, he fainted. Otherwise, if the spirit value continues to decline, he might not even have a chance to die. He would directly become a dungeon fiend. At this moment, after dealing with the fat ghost, the female teacher turned around. She stared coldly at Evan Zhao. Evan Zhao did not hesitate. He immediately stood up and handed the exam paper to her. The female teacher then took the paper. Then she waved her arm to signal him to leave. "Get out. Don't disturb the exam discipline. I will cancel your exam qualification." Evan Zhao chuckled hastily upon hearing this. "All right," he responded. Lene Yang looked at his departing figure with great confusion. Is he leaving just like that? After he walked out of the classroom, Evan Zhao's smile on his face also disappeared instantly. I probably understand some of it. The exam ended 40 minutes later. Several people also gathered together. Lene Yang felt helpless. How can we play the Inferno difficulty mode so recklessly? Liam Bai also agreed. Yeah, buddy. Your actions just now were too dangerous. You almost scared Toby to death. Evan Zhao laughed and explained. I was just testing that teacher. The fact proves that as long as we don't trigger the death point, the tolerance of this female ghost towards us is very broad. The point of death. This sentence immediately caught the attention of the 3 people. Big brother, please explain in detail. Evan Zhao then looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, he then whispered his analysis. Have you noticed that the female ghost has rules when it comes to killing people? Several people heard this, and were puzzled about what rules. Isn't it just randomly picking a lucky person to behead? Seeing their confused look, Evan Zhao waved his hand and asked me to go to the playground. The view there is wide. During noon break, I observed a total of 8 classes. By carefully looking, one can discover that the number of students in each classroom in the teaching building is not more than half of the seats. Moreover, the further forward the class, the fewer people there are. Just now, after handing in my paper, I went to the second floor to take a look. I found that the situation on the second floor was exactly the same as the first floor. And our class is in the classroom closest to the edge on the 3rd floor. A lot of seats are already empty. However, the other classrooms on the 3rd floor do not have fewer people. Linnea Yang became even more puzzled when she heard this. What does this imply? Evan Zhao's slightly furrowed brow replied, imagine if the classmate's death was caused by some curse. So the curse spreads from the first floor. It's like some kind of virus infecting class by class. And now it has spread to our class. This curse has created some kind of rule. And anyone who breaks this rule will die. Is that rule related to exam discipline? Toby and Liam hugged each other fearfully. Evan Zhao paused for a moment and continued. You guys think about it. I was loud and rowdy just now. I kicked the head of the classmate in front of me. It must have disrupted the order of the examination room. But even so, the invigilator did not lay a hand on me. Instead, it was the chubby student in front of me who inexplicably had his head chopped off. So he must have done something to trigger the death point. And the deceased students, they must have done the same thing. If you are attentive enough, you will find that the examination papers and scratch papers on the empty seats are blank. A few students' papers are also blank. Linnea Yang seemed to have understood something at this point. I have noticed this as well. The final blank test papers were all handled by female teacher. There were a total of 7 people. Is that blank test paper the trigger for death? Evan Zhao shook his head after listening. It shouldn't be that simple. The test paper is not the trigger for death. From the completion of the previous dungeon, even Inferno difficulty dungeons, people simply won't find it too difficult just to complete the main storyline. The truly challenging part is exploring the worldview of the subquest side quests. So the mainline quest of this dungeon won't be too difficult either. Toby's lips turned pale as he spoke with a trembling voice. You said so much already. Just tell us directly. What triggers death? I don't want to die. I really want to leave this place soon. Evan Zhao touched his nose, feeling a bit embarrassed. At the moment, I also don't know what triggers death. Even though it's not an exam, it should be related to the exam. And there is something I have to tell you in advance. His eyes suddenly lit up with excitement as he said this. Seriously speaking, it is very likely that only the 4 of us are living people in this school. The others are all ghosts. The man is trapped in a terrifying ghost school. Apart from 3 companions, everyone else here is a ghost. They not only have to figure out how to survive until 7 days later. They also need to complete the quest to obtain the sacrificial doll. They experienced a brutal test as soon as they entered here. Although, several of them safely survived from female teachers' hands. But they are still not clear about the rules here. They can easily lose their lives carelessly. Especially when they hear it from Evan Zhao's mouth. Only the 4 of them are alive then. Toby was so scared that his legs buckled, and he almost passed out. Several people were a bit speechless at the sight. Linnea Yang asked helplessly what to do next. The time in this dungeon is too tight, and the pace seems loose. She doesn't know where to start. Evan Zhao glanced towards the classroom in the distance upon hearing this and replied, Wait until it gets dark. But why do we have to wait until it gets dark? Liam couldn't help but feel puzzled. Evan Zhao turned to look at him. Do you think as students, we have extra time during the day to look up the information we want? Linnea Yang felt it made sense as expected of the top student. There is indeed some truth to that. So, shall we set a time and place to meet tonight? Later, a few people agreed to meet at 12 o'clock at the pavilion behind. At this moment, Toby, who had just woken up, raised his trembling hand. Can I skip it? I'm scared of bumping into ghosts, he interjected. Evan Zhao nodded and replied, Of course you can. But let me remind you in advance. You'll be alone at night. If you hear or see anything, don't scream out loud. No one will come to help you because we won't be around. Toby trembled in fright upon hearing this. Bro, I'm out of here. Can I leave is not okay? Not long after, the evening self-study session ended. Students started returning to the dormitory one after another. Evan Zhao also followed and walked to his own room. He pushed open the door and was surprised to find that the conditions of this dormitory were not bad. Although a bit crowded, it was still clean and tidy. Evan Zhao had just sat down on the bed when he heard a reminder. After a day of taut nerves, you finally breathe a sigh of relief when you returned to the dormitory. So you started feeling drowsy and quickly entered into a possibly not-so-sweet dreamland. With the sound fading, he seemed to be hypnotized by a mysterious force and drifted off into a daze. I don't know how long time has passed. Evan Zhao, who was sleeping drowsily, suddenly opened his eyes. The dormitory was empty at this moment. He was the only person in the entire dormitory building. Evan Zhao suddenly had a bad premonition. It seems like something is wrong. He checked the time on his phone. He found that there were only 3 minutes left until the agreed time. So he hurried to the agreed place. The surroundings had changed drastically. The wall paint peeled off, revealing decaying mold stains. The desolate ruin looked extremely bleak. Linnea Yang was nervously pacing back and forth. She finally breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing Evan Zhao. "How about you? Where are the rest of them?" Evan Zhao replied that he didn't see anyone. "Everyone has disappeared. I even thought you guys were gone too." Linnea Yang was worried after hearing that. Could it be that they have already been harmed? Evan Zhao comforted her, saying, "Don't worry too much. We probably haven't triggered the death point yet. They are most likely still alive. Judging from the surrounding scenery, we have probably entered a place similar to the inner world. But this is also a good thing. The inner world makes it easier for us to explore the school more deeply. Let's go see what the current teaching building looks like." Linnea Yang responded and quickly followed behind. She only feels secure when she is not an inch away from Evan Zhao. Just arrived at the area of the teaching building. A dark figure suddenly appeared ahead. In the dark shadow, a pair of crimson eyes seemed to be staring at them. Linnea Yang asked in a horrified tone what it was. Evan Zhao replied that he didn't know either. He said, "But anyway, it's definitely not human." After saying this, he took big steps towards the dark figure. Linnea Yang quickly stepped forward and grabbed him. "Do you go there even if you know it's not a person, risking your life?" Evan Zhao immediately started to explain. "If it's a neutral unit, it may help us collect information." Linnea Yang asked back, "What if it isn't?" He smiled meaningfully after hearing it. Then he took out his own scalpel. "If not, then I will turn it into a neutral unit." Linnea Yang was somewhat speechless at the words. At that moment, she felt that the other party was more terrifying than Ghost. The audience outside the live broadcast room were now boiling with excitement. "Damn, this guy really has guts." Evan Zhao boldly walked towards the shadow with a surgical knife in hand. The shadow, who was originally in a detached state, was temporarily stunned for a few seconds when he saw Evan approaching. Immediately after, the shadow swiftly ran into the teaching building. Evan Zhao couldn't help but frown when he saw this. The distance was too far. He didn't have time to activate his skill to see the hints clearly. "Don't go. Let's chat." With that, he immediately accelerated and hurried to catch up. A ghost shadow suddenly appeared in front of the man, but he was not only unafraid but also walked straight past with a scalpel in hand. The ghost shadow saw the man's fierce appearance. The ghost shadow was so scared that it immediately began to flee frantically. Evan Zhao, seeing this, followed closely with the scalpel in hand. He ran madly up the pitch-black staircase. After being stunned for a moment, Linnea Yang quickly followed up. "Have you always been this brave?" She was speechless at this point. Evan Zhao replied that it was not the case. In fact, he had always been very cautious. "Cautious? Today you acted in front of the invigilator female ghost. You disrupted the exam discipline." He listened to her complaints without looking back and explained, "That's because I am 100% sure female ghosts won't lay a hand on me." "Did you not pay attention during the exam this afternoon? Several classmates were cheating right under the invigilator teacher's nose. After the invigilator teacher discovered it, he just gave a warning. This shows that disrupting exam discipline and breaking the rules will not trigger a death prohibition spell. Linnea Yang pondered this for a moment. She really didn't pay attention to this. At this moment, Evan Zhao's footsteps suddenly stopped. Not reacting in time, she bumped right into him. "Why did you stop without saying anything?" Linnea Yang was interrupted halfway through her sentence when Evan Zhao made a gesture for silence. Realizing that things were going south, she quickly covered her own mouth. In the darkness, she could barely see clearly. The two of them carefully came to the door of a classroom. They peeked inside quietly through the glass. They saw an empty classroom. Suddenly, numerous dark shadows appeared. Linnea Yang was instantly frightened. The body also couldn't help but shudder. "What are these dark shadows?" Evan Zhao said he couldn't be sure either. "Come to our class and take a look." Then the two of them didn't say anything. They went straight to Class 8, Grade 11. They saw through the glass that there were also silhouettes inside. The difference was that there weren't as many silhouettes as downstairs. And there was also one standing on the platform. Strangely, these silhouettes corresponded to the positions of the people who died during the day. This made Evan Zhao frown involuntarily. At that moment, Linnea Yang trembled and pointed ahead, signaling him to look. "What's wrong?" Evan Zhao raised his head in confusion to look. Only a scarlet eye staring them hard. And it was the eye of the shadow on the platform. In an instant, the two fell into a freezing cell. The hair on their bodies stood up in fear. Recognizing the danger, Evan Zhao immediately grabbed her and ran downstairs. The man is trapped in the ghost-infested school, and he must find a way to survive here for 7 days. But as time passes, eerie things keep happening. The classroom, empty of all people, suddenly filled with a large number of dark shadows. Even scarier was the female teacher on the platform. At that moment, she was staring at him with crimson eyes. Evan Zhao was instantly covered in cold sweat. He quickly grabbed the girl next to him and ran frantically for his life. But just as they ran down the stairs, a terrifying laughter rang out. A struggling ghost was blocking their way at this moment. "It's too scary. How do we get past?" Linnea Yang is afraid. Her heart started beating violently. Her spiritual power also rapidly declined. But Evan Zhao walked over without any fear. Linnea Yang was a bit puzzled. The next second, she was grabbed by Evan Zhao's arm. Then he pulled her and charged straight ahead. Ghost moved his body slightly and prepared to welcome the arrival of the prey. At this moment, Evan Zhao instantly threw out his own surgical knife. The sharp blade flashed by. In the blink of an eye, it hit Ghost right in the head. The sound of the blade piercing echoed. The terrifying laughter of Ghost also came to a sudden halt. Evan Zhao watched as the opponent fell. A faint smile hung on his lips. Because of the clues just now, he knew that this was just a low-level dangerous ghost. "Ding, you killed the unlucky ghost, Chong, who came out to use the bathroom. Your soul-bound weapon has gained a slight enhancement." No time to linger. Evan Zhao quickly drew out his own scalpel. He then took Linnea Yang along and continued to flee. "The main gate is not far away. Hurry up. It must not leave the academic building," Evan Zhao immediately reminded. Upon hearing this, Linnea Yang's eyes lit up. She quickened her pace once again. "That's great, we are about to run out now." Just as she was excited, little did she know a pair of big hands had already reached behind her. The next second, she, who was just about to go out, was grabbed by the darkness. A shadow caught her by the neck. The cold sensation permeated her whole body for a moment. Before she could react, she was dragged back into the building by the shadow. Evan Zhao, who had just arrived at the door, heard Linnea Yang's cry for help. He turned around and without hesitation, swung his weapon. The scalpel made a sharp sound as it stabbed. Half of Linnea Yang's ear was instantly sliced off. The speed of the surgical knife did not decrease. It then hit the dark shadow behind, followed by a piercing scream. Those arms also released the girl, who was being controlled. Seeing this, her adrenaline surged to the extreme. She immediately scrambled and rushed outside. A few seconds later, she arrived by Evan Zhao's side. At this moment, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Her body went limp. Immediately, a liquid also flowed onto the ground. She has already left. Evan Zhao comforted with a sentence. Linnea Yang gradually came to her senses after hearing this. The pain in her left ear was getting stronger. She touched it with her hand, only to find that her ear was missing. Seeing Linnea Yang's pitiful teary-eyed look, Evan Zhao sighed helplessly. It's not a big deal. The dungeon will regenerate after it ends, including her ear. At this moment, the audience outside the live broadcast room was all stirred up. Damn! My goddess almost died. No wonder he's the top-ranked man. If it were me, I'd probably have run without looking back. He actually still wants to save people. That throwing knife was vicious. If it had been a little more off-target, it would probably be stuck in Linnea Yang's forehead. After helping her bandage the wound on her ear, Evan Zhao made a decision that would shock everyone's socks off. Then he turned to Linnea Yang next to him and said, "Wait here. I'll go in again." The girl was tightly gripped by the ghost around her neck. Fortunately, she was able to escape from the ghost's grasp with the help of the man. Still shaken, she had not yet recovered her senses. He heard the man say that they were going to enter ghost school again. Linnea Yang was completely panicked at the moment. Are you crazy to continue walking in there? What if it's waiting to ambush you? Wouldn't you be falling into a trap? Upon hearing this, Evan Zhao began to explain. No, they won't. The ghosts in this school do not move freely. They all follow certain rules. For example, the invigilator who was just chasing us. I am sure it won't follow us out of the building. Otherwise, it would violate its own rules and receive unexpected punishment that we cannot imagine. Linnea Yang lowered her head at the words. At this moment, she finally felt a coolness in her lower body. Damn it, I peed myself out of fright again. How embarrassing. Then she blushed and changed the subject. Did you go back into the teaching building because there was some important information inside? Evan Zhao pondered for a moment before responding. I need a class roster. It's too risky to take the one in the examiner's hands. There should be a backup copy in the office. He gestured to go in. At this moment, Linnea Yang suddenly spoke up and requested, Can you take me with you? Evan Zhao looked at her with interest. Are you sure? She took a deep breath and replied firmly, You know it. If I don't do anything, even if I clear the level, my score and points will be very low. Don't worry, I won't cause you trouble. If you really encounter danger, just run away. You don't need to care about me. She was afraid of being rejected. She quickly added, I'll follow you. Who knows when I might be able to help? All right then. Evan Zhao hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. Then the two of them entered the classroom building once again. The ghosts in the hallway seemed restless, yet for some reason, they did not attack them. Linnea Yang inquired with confusion. She asked why you wanted to go to the third floor earlier. To check out our classroom? Evan Zhao responded that he went to the third floor to verify his guess. The dark shadows in our classroom are those who died during the day. Soon, the two of them arrived at the office on the fourth floor. After making sure there was no movement inside, Evan Zhao carefully opened the door and walked in. The room was a bit messy with things scattered everywhere. After locking the door, the two of them started searching for the directory. Evan Zhao analyzed as he searched. During the day, there are 472 seats in 8 classrooms on the first floor. 121 students are seated in completely random seats. I roughly noted down all of their positions. The seats the shadows sat in the classroom on the first floor just now happened to be the empty seats in the daytime classroom. If it was just one class, it might be a coincidence. But if it's the case for 8 consecutive classes, I think that's enough to become a rule. But just to be cautious, I went to the third floor again. There. I saw the little fat boy sitting in front of me. He was caught cheating by the teacher during the day. In his place, I indeed saw a shadow. So, we can now come to a fundamental conclusion. These shadows are the people who were killed during the day. Linnea Yang felt a bit skeptical about life after hearing that. You said you have recorded all the positions of 472 seats and 21 students in the 8 classrooms on the first floor. But you only took a glance. Ah. Evan Zhao raised his head in confusion and looked at her. Is it not enough? Linnea Yang didn't know what to say when she heard this. She didn't understand that they were all human. Why is the gap so big? The man is trapped in the terrifying ghost school. He must find a way to survive safely for 7 days. During his exploration, he discovered that a large number of dark shadows appear in the classrooms at night. And these shadows seem to be the people killed by the invigilator teacher during the day. Linnea Yang heard his speculation with some confusion. But what use is it for us to know this? Evan Zhao then explained. It's very useful. Based on such a rule, we can make an inference about the rule. During the day, people are in a living state. The dark shadows at night are in a dead state. Living and dead people cannot occupy the same seat. Otherwise, it is considered a violation of the rule and will result in execution. Linnea Yang still doesn't understand what this means. But those shadows have already died once, haven't they? Can they die again? Evan Zhao did not respond after listening. Because he found a roster and a letter inside the cabinet. He set the letter aside and began flipping through the roster immediately. Not only did it list the names and schedules of the classes, but it also marked the position of each person. Evan Zhao remembered the time displayed in the classroom earlier, September 14th, which is today. The seat in front of my name is empty. There is no name there. That means during the daytime test, that seat should not be taken. But that chubby boy sat here. He realized that he was sitting in the wrong seat. But he didn't know which was the right seat. So he was scared because he thought he would die for sitting in the wrong seat. Linnea Yang suddenly became excited upon hearing this. Let's just take this roster with us. In the following days, won't we know where we should be sitting? This way, we can get through the 7 days. Evan Zhao pouring cold water on hearsay isn't that easy. We enter the dungeon on the 14th. We need to survive a total of 7 days at the school. So theoretically, if daytime is continuous. So, the dungeon should end on September 20th. But all slots on the roster for the 20th are empty. Linnea Yang took a sharp breath at this news. Why is that? Evan Zhao revealed a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. Because on that day we will all die. Linnea Yang's hair stood on end the moment she heard the other party's words. Her spiritual power also decreased significantly. Don't scare me. I'm very timid. Evan Zhao then picked up the envelope next to him. He found inside not only a thick stack of paper money, but also a short letter. The principal is really sorry. I have caused you trouble. I will pay more attention to such things in the future. I heard that his mother is his only relative. Now that this matter has escalated like this, he may not let it go easily. Please talk to the mayor more. This money is not much. Consider it a small token of filial piety to you. The content inside has been heavily edited. Many key messages have been crossed out. It seems that it hasn't been sent out yet. Evan Zhao furrowed his brows and began to contemplate. At this moment, he heard a ding sound in his ear. The outline of the surgical knife also gradually appeared in the air. He immediately grabbed the surgical knife and looked at Linnea Yang, who had just returned with the weapon. Let's go to the principal's office. Before leaving, the two quickly returned the items to their original positions. Then Evan Zhao took out some paper money again. Linnea Yang curiously asked him what he was doing with the money. Evan Zhao looked at her with a meaningful response just in case. The man unexpectedly received 1 billion hell banknotes. But he dared not spend a penny of it. Because it's a world full of ghosts everywhere. These ghost money will help them escape disaster. Linnea Yang is full of doubts. Can you explain in detail? I still don't understand why you want to take that money. Evan Zhao then explained immediately. Whether the people in this school are humans or ghosts, they are all following their own rules and doing things. The teacher is invigilating. Unless there are special circumstances, they cannot leave the classroom for too long. But the principal is different. The principal spends most of the time in the school, but is not as busy as the teachers. So if he is in the office, we have to find a way to draw him out of the office. Linnea Yang's eyes lit up when she heard this. I understand that. But what does drawing him out have to do with this money? As soon as the words were spoken, Evan Zhao made a hushing gesture because they had just walked through the corridor and arrived at the principal's office on the top floor. The two of them cautiously looked through the glass, and some unstable data began to reappear. Principal, high danger. It is obviously not something that you guys, the vegetables, can directly confront. But his ability to act has been greatly limited, causing him to have to run with the same hand and foot. The principal is counting the ghost money in his hand. Obviously, he is a die-hard money fanatic. You stay here and watch it for me while I go and lay out the money. Evan Zhao quietly reminded me with a sentence before taking action. He used these paper money to lure the principal out of the office. It took about 10 minutes. He spread all the paper money in his hand on the ground. After doing all this, he clapped his hands and returned to the office door. Got it. When I knock on the door later, you run with me to the stairs to the rooftop. Then find a place to hide. Linnea Yang nodded in understanding after hearing this. She finally understood the other party's intentions. After that, Evan Zhao knocked on the office door. At the moment when the principal turned around in confusion, the two of them had already quickly left. Soon the door was opened. The bloated and obese principal then walked out. His head creaked and twisted 360 degrees. But he didn't see anyone. There was only a faint smell of urine in the air. He began to search along the smell in confusion. But before he could take a few steps, the held bank notes at his feet caught his attention. A sinister smile appeared at the corner of the principal's mouth. He quickly bent down to pick them up. The man spread out the 1 billion held banknotes on the ground. Then a twisted ghost stuck its head out through the crack in the door, looking at the bright red banknotes below. He was stunned for a few seconds, then involuntarily picked up the money. After he walked a little further, Evan Zhao finally revealed his figure. We're going to the office to find a file. Linnea Yang heard this, and was a bit confused. What file? From the previous letter, it can be seen that a student's mother had a conflict with the school. Moreover, the school has caused very serious harm to his mother, even killed his mother. Just as the conversation got to this point, the money collector ghost had already disappeared into the distance. Evan Zhao quickly waved for Linnea Yang to catch up. So now we need to find that student's file to see what exactly happened. Linnea Yang carefully observed the surroundings while asking as she spoke. However, if it's really as you guessed, would something damaging the school's reputation be recorded in the file? Evan Zhao casually opened the storage cabinet and began to analyze it. However, student withdrawals are recorded. There are not many reasons for a huge conflict to occur between the school and a student's parents. It's nothing but because of the child's safety, health, or academic performance. Stonehill High School is a military-style closed school with strict rules that prohibit students from fighting, and there is strict supervision. Things that threaten the safety and health of students are almost non-existent, so it's hard to provoke conflicts between the school and students' parents, or even motivate them to get into physical fights. The motivation is mostly related to the issue of students dropping out. Linnea Yang's eyes lit up when she heard this. Oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? Following Evan Zhao's thorough investigation, he found an interesting person in the files. Qinshan ranked first in the whole grade. He was expelled in September for dating too early. A top student with such excellent grades was expelled for dating too early. This made him feel that things shouldn't be that simple. Linnea Yang glanced oddly. Does the school have rules that expel students for dating too early? Evan Zhao replied. I roughly flipped through it. The records of other disciplined students. The punishment for early dating is both parties suspended and parents called. Quinchin is the only one who got expelled. Such an outstanding student. Normally they would only receive lighter punishment compared to other students. Unless he is in the midst of puppy love. He has provoked someone who is completely unmanageable. Linnea Yang became curious and started guessing. Either his puppy love interest has a background, or his love rival has a background. Evan Zhao is more inclined towards the latter. After all, a person with such outstanding academic performance usually values their self-esteem greatly. If Quinchin pursues a female classmate and she rejects him, and then Quinchin keeps pestering her, the probability of the female classmate resorting to her background to force him to drop out is relatively low. If a person is rejected by someone they like, they shouldn't continue to pester that person. So the second scenario is more reasonable. We need to look into the matter regarding Quinchin. There might be some good leads. Linnea Yang shook her head helplessly and asked, "Where can we look it up? Our phones were all issued by the school. We can't connect to the internet, so we can only set alarms." "You can connect to the internet in the computer room," Evan Zhao said as he closed the locker. But at this moment, Linnea Yang stood still in shock, trembling uncontrollably. She realized it, and weakly pointed towards the door. A strong aura of killing intent instantly pervaded around Evan Zhao. Realizing the danger, Evan Zhao suddenly turned around. He saw the bloated and ferocious ghost staring at him intently. Oh no! The principal is back early. A man and a woman sneaked into Ghost's room to seek excitement. Little did they know, they had fallen into Ghost's trap. The man who realized the danger suddenly turned his head. Just at that moment, the originally bloated, obese figure transformed into the body of a young man. As he walked step by step into the room, the walls of the entire house began to peel off, revealing a flow of crimson blood. "You should all die. They should all die," they heard the bitter voice. Evan Zhao immediately protected Linnea Yang behind him. Immediately after that, he took out Gramps Lu's property title from the storage space. "Are you Quinchin? We are here to investigate the truth. What exactly happened between you and your mother back then?" The figure in black paused for a moment upon hearing the words, "Truth." Then it covered its head and let out a piercing scream. The deafening sound made both of them dizzy. Linnea Yang's HP keeps decreasing incessantly. I fought back against it. Seeing that it couldn't go on like this, she took out a hunting rifle from the storage space. I am not Quinchin. Mother, Eva Zhang, Sep Peng." The dark figure sometimes laughed loudly with his head up, sometimes struggled with his head in his hands. He intermittently uttered these words. Then its head gradually started to swell. In a moment, dozens of tentacles with spikes drilled out from inside. The two of them suddenly felt their scalps tingle as they watched this scene. What the hell is this fiend? Linnea Yang was so scared that her legs were shaking like a sieve. The hunting rifle in her hand was almost too shaky to hold and nearly dropped to the ground. The dark figure then slowly walked towards the two of them step by step. They were about to retreat into a dead end and fall into danger. Linnea Yang pretended to stay calm, holding a hunting gun and preparing to risk her life. "Evan Zhao, you run quickly, I'll hold it back." At the moment the hunting gun was raised by her, several sharp thorns were already approaching. "Quickly move away." Evan Zhao saw the situation was not in his favor. While retreating, he kicked Linnea Yang in the body. The next moment, the spikes hit the positions where the two people were just now. The ground shattered like tofu under this blow. Linnea Yang, who narrowly escaped disaster, fell with a bang onto a distant wall. And Evan Zhao, who was relatively closer, found himself in danger once again. Just as he landed, he found several sharp spikes suddenly shooting towards him. The tentacles with the spikes moved so fast that they produced a sonic boom. Oh, with Evan Zhao's current reaction speed, it's simply impossible to dodge this attack. If he were hit by it, he would probably die instantly. Just as it seemed like he was about to meet his end, a gunshot suddenly broke the stalemate. The dark figure let out a howl, and was forced to stop the attack. Evan Zhao, you go quickly. I will cover you. Linnea Yang tightly gripped the hunting rifle in her hand, her eyes filled with determination. Damn, so cool. Even though she peed her pants, she is still my goddess. Seizing this opportunity, Evan Zhao quickly steadied his stance. Ordinary firearms are basically ineffective against Ghost, but the impact of the bullets helped him fend off this deadly attack. Linnea Yang was screaming at this moment. She fired 2 shots at the dark shadow. The shadow that was hit stiffened up. Evan Zhao, seeing the situation, chose not to flee. He seemed to be contemplating something. A crimson color bloomed in his eyes. He then rolled towards the other party. This rolling brought the 2 sides significantly closer. He quickly pulled out a property title. He suddenly stuck it onto the black shadow. At this moment, a spike also arrived at Evan Zhao's head. 1 more centimeter. His head would explode like a watermelon. At this moment, the effect of property title finally manifested. Gramps Lu's property title has been unsealed. It forcibly seals a fiend within 5 meters for 10 seconds, with a cooldown of 1 day. The black shadow stood still motionless. Evan Zhao quickly turned his head. He looked at Linnea Yang and ran quickly. After saying that, the 2 took the opportunity to run towards the door immediately. At this point, the door was already surrounded by black bugs. Linnea Yang raised the hunting rifle and pulled the trigger fiercely. After the door was broken open, they fled into the darkness of the corridor without looking back. And a few seconds later, the black shadow also lifted the seal. At this moment, the people outside the live broadcast room are all sweating nervously. Can they escape this time? The girl is shooting wildly at the fiend with a hunting rifle. And the man took out the property title and pasted it on the fiend. But their actions did not cause effective harm to the fiend. Taking advantage of the short few seconds, they immediately fled from here. After leaving the house, the 2 of them fled for their lives all the way. The distorted black shadow was bouncing and jumping, chasing after them from behind. As the black shadow's arms and legs were extremely uncoordinated, its movements were slightly slower. Evan Zhao immediately waved out his surgical knife upon seeing the situation. With a swishing sound, the tip of the knife pierced into the heart of the dark shadow. Although unable to kill the powerful fiend, delaying some time was still achievable. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the 2 of them quickly ran to the outside of the teaching building. The distance between them and the dark shadow gradually widened. After a long time, Linnea Yang gasped for breath, indicating that she couldn't run anymore and needed to take a break. Evan Zhao looked around and found that he had already shaken off the figure in black. Only then did he feel relieved. Linnea Yang then asked him where he was going. Evan Zhao replied that he was going to the computer room to take a look. There are still 3 hours before the early reading tomorrow. Let's go to the computer room and try our luck. Maybe we can find out more about Quinn Chen's case. At this moment, Linnea Yang seemed to have figured something out. By the way, I have a shotgun for you. In the future, the game will launch the field system. You are currently using a shotgun. You can also increase proficiency in the field of firearms. Evan Zhao took it without any courtesy and said thank you. This shotgun is not a regular firearm in the outside world, but one exchanged in the mall. Although it doesn't cause much damage to ghosts, it can stun them. For new players, it is considered a valuable item. At this time, the live stream barrage was filled with discussions. The Vanquisher sells for 2,000 points in the mall. My goddess just gave it away like that. Evan Zhao saved her twice. It's only right to give back a little gift. After more than 10 minutes, the 2 of them,